Have you ever met the connector? Well, he ponders, he helps, he creates, he writes, he speaks. He basically connects people and brings them together. I speak about Paul Solano of PS and All Marketing Group. At psandallmarketinggroup.com, you will receive an assembled group of Paul's contacts and connections that cross into many sectors of life. Please contact Paul Solano at 617-240-4130 or psandallmarketinggroup@gmail.com if you are in the market for a wide array of services. Again, please contact The Connector, Paul Solano at 617-240-4130 or psandallmarketinggroup@gmail.com with any questions. And now, here's Paul Solano, the host of Paul Ponders.
Welcome to Hashtag Paul Ponders. I've really enjoyed bringing you fun, informed, intriguing, and pondering podcasts. Many thanks to Hashtag PodPro Entertainment. Today's collaborating sponsor, Scott Albertson of Hashtag Project142.org, Riverworks Credit Union, NMLS number 410564, and Remax Renaissance Realty of Reading. Thanks for listening, rating, reviewing, and subscribing. Let Hashtag Paul Ponders begin. Greetings, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well today. Well, it isn't often that I have returning guests, but I have a very dear friend who is a returning guest for the third time. He's often appearing on my guests as a guest on WATD 95.9 on my Saturday show. But I want to bring to the table my dear friend, United States Air Force retired Staff Sergeant Gene Sticco. Gene, welcome.
Hey, Paul. Good to see you again.
It's great to have you on, my friend. Now, Gene, you've been on, this is your third time. Three's a charm, as always. And you were last on episode number 67. If you have not heard the episode 67 on Engineering Infinity. And that was a great, well-received episode. Here we are, 25 episodes later. And we are just talking about a wonderful new venture, a new website that ties into Engineering Infinity. And you have started a project and a website called Blackgrove Global Risk.com. So please take it away, my friend, and we'll just play off of each other as we always do so well.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah, so, Engineering Infinity was the publication and translation of my late father-in-law's work, scientific work that involved the reverse engineering of a UFO that was done during the Cold War, this period of the Soviet Union. We came into possession of the documents in 2019. Took about 4 years of trying to figure out what exactly they were and was there anything to them. By 2024 and early into 25, I was finding the connections into U.S. government programs, and now 13 months into sort of being just jumping feet first into this world of UFO, UAP disclosure, calls on the government and actions in the government to talk and bring forward what the government knows about this topic. I mean, it has been a whirlwind. And I got to the point where I realized that there wasn't anything coming out to prepare businesses and prepare communities and investors and all these sort of sectors for what's happening. Not and I'm not talking about a White House Oval Office speech that we're not alone and there's aliens or anything like that. Just that regardless of belief, the U.S. government has acknowledged that there are unidentified things in the skies. They have begun to take legislative action particularly to uncover what's been done in the past. We have just this past February, President Trump created what's known as the Pursue program, which is a long acronym, but basically it's at war.gov/UFO, where all of these files are being released to the public, photos, correspondence, things that were previously classified. There's since 2024, the National Archives has a section dedicated to this topic, and there's tens of thousands of files in there. So Blackgrove Global Risk grew out of what are movements that are happening uh, by the government within the technology sector, within the raw materials sectors, things that are happening below the surface. I wouldn't even say behind the scenes, because when you know what you're looking for, it's all right there. And my father-in-law's work is what's providing me the roadmap to be able to do that, which is further confirming that what he worked on in from 1980 to 1990 um, had to be legitimate, because the science has been created since then. The materials, everything that he talks about that this craft is made of, are part of almost a geopolitical war that's going on between the U.S., Russia, and China, and it's fascinating to look at that. So, my background included sort of both intelligence and corporate risk management, looking at geopolitical and transnational security risks and advising global leaders, boards, C-suites on what these movements are and what they look like. And so myself, another gentleman who's involved in the finance sector, and another one who's a business development person, who grows businesses. They're helping me out behind the scenes to structure something that can speak to exactly that level, and to say to them what I said earlier. You don't need to believe in aliens. It has nothing to do with belief. Things are happening and moving without regard to your belief. And so get in front of it now and be prepared for it, or be surprised later on. Like anything else, the choice is there. And I liken it a lot. I've been saying it's almost like the climate change debates that happen, because we're seeing the same things happening. We're seeing private organizations that are advocates. We're seeing very vocal activists for transparency and movement on this. We're seeing the scientific community now standing up and getting involved. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the ODNI, they've set up a scientific advisory council. It's chaired by Professor Avi Loeb, who is the head of physics over at Harvard. We have a Boston connection to this that's happening. There's another group that is going to go through old NASA files. So we see the science around this, and the analysis that's going to be coming out of it. So it's happening regardless if anyone accepts the premise or doesn't. And most recently, over the last week, we've had Dr. Phil taken to the airwaves. And he had there was a release last Friday of a new tranche, as they're called, of files out of the government. And Dr. Phil and his staff had advanced look at those. And he's been talking about basically how mortified he is that this has been kept a secret for 80 years, that people have been ridiculed and literally lost their lives over this subject, and that it is all true. And he's starting to, uh, you know, talk about the history and frame what exactly the issues are for the public, while also talking about what's known as ontological shock, the questions that inevitably rise from understanding that not only are we not alone in the universe, that we may not be necessarily always be alone on the planet, and that there have been things through history that have been changed because of this issue, and so that's a lot for people to put their minds around.
Exactly. And it's almost as if there's been a paradigm shift, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's, again, the younger, by all the, lots of statistics, lots of, surveys and things floating out there. By all indications, the younger generation, younger than yourself and myself, are kind of like, well, yeah, of course there has to be. And it's not really, it doesn't seem as much of a shock, to that generation. Of course, us, our parents, our relatives who, anyone in our age demographic may have that are still around, we obviously came from a much different time. We have different relationships to faith and the church, than, even young people have today, in many ways. We always knew of the stigma around this issue, that anyone who said anything like that was a crackpot. And what I've come to learn, and people that I've met who are experiencers, um, it really is tragic to think that this was done to them, and the people who through the decades, um, truthfully brought information forward, who were the victims of psychological operations by the government that drove them to suicide, who were professionally ruined, and cascaded into ruin of their families, and then people that just disappeared or died under suspicious circumstances, and even today, there's 12 cases that are being investigated by the FBI. All of them involve the disappearance or mysterious deaths of scientists whose work touched on the scientific domains involved, with the UAP issue. Probably the recent and biggest headline is the former Air Force Research Lab General, General McCaslin, who's still missing. Um, and the FBI is involved now. I mean, there's 12 of them. The FBI's threshold for, serial activities, if there's 2 brunette women with green eyes that are killed in the United States, in a small geographic area, they categorize that as serial killings and start investigating it that way. Serial kidnappings. It only takes 2 cases for the FBI that have some sort of relationship. We have 12, and nobody was looking into it until that was sort of raised, at the congressional level.
Absolutely fascinating. Now, Gene, I know recently there was an interview you had with a blogger or podcaster. It was called Vetted, and
Yes.
you were portrayed as the new whistleblower. Okay, with your history with big oil. Okay, your past career with this UFO and all. And as I've always said, you are one of the most fascinating people I've ever met. You are a Renaissance man, and all. But if you want to let our listeners in Paul Ponder's land know what that was all about.
Yeah, so the interview, airs tomorrow. The podcast that's on YouTube X, is called Vetted, Vetted. He was telling me he's done over 500 interviews so far. He's very popular. I wouldn't necessarily call him a skeptic, but he's somebody who pushes and asks questions. Um, so he had come across my story through a mutual friend, He reached out to interview me. We did that interview. What's today? Thursday. So we did that interview on Tuesday. And he said, he goes, normally, he said, listen, I just do about an hour. He goes, if we go over an hour, that's okay. But, anything over that, people start losing, attention, and absolutely no problem. We'll do an hour. And, we finished up. As we finished up, he said, well, rarely have I ever been left with more questions. We'll have to do a follow-up. No problem. We chatted for a few minutes afterwards, and I was kind of catching him up on some things, and more kind of behind the scenes, things we never, got to in the interview. And, he's based in Spain. And so when I woke up the next morning, I had a message, and he's like, "Are you free this morning?" He's like, "I couldn't stop thinking about a couple of things that you said." I said, "Yeah, nothing but time. Believe it or not, technically retired. So this is all I work on and get involved in." Um, and we wound up doing another 3 hours, almost 4. So he put it all together, and even in and he released a 10-minute preview today, which was phenomenal. I mean, the turnaround and sort of the B-roll and everything he gets in there is fantastic.
Without a
Um,
doubt. Yeah.
yeah, and I looked at it, and I was like, "Oh, wow, look at me,"
Wow.
It was
Only 14,625 likes in 10 hours.
yeah, so,
Wow.
yeah, so that will air tomorrow. YouTube is probably the best place to find it, the vetted podcast. He interviews a lot of fascinating people, so it's, quite complimentary to see him go 4 times over his normal limit just for little old me. But it's a big subject, and the materials are dense, and what they've led to is extraordinary.
Without a doubt. Now, Gene, as we start to wind down and all, you say you're retired, but it seems like you are not retired from publishing books. So why don't you give those plugs out for all those books you've published, including, and operators standing by, I'm sure, that free download on the Blackgrove Global Risk website. So please take
Yeah,
it
I'll
away.
I'll I'll tell you, there was a point in my life when I said, "Yeah, well, I wanna write a book," and I probably spent 15 years trying to think of how to do it, and boy, once you get that first one down, the rest of them just kinda flow like easy river, right?
Right.
If you go to engineeringinfinitybook.com, uh, that's the best central point for everything else. That book itself, Engineering Infinity, Earth's First Interstellar Blueprint, is the translation of my father-in-law's original works. All of the original scans are in there, along with the physics. Um, from that came Infinity Disclosed, which is it's more of a political book based on engineering infinity. Infinity discloses a treatise for Congress, actually, on the UAP issue and national security, and it details the relationship from the Soviet designs to American denial, and it spells all of that out. Again, sort of it's more of a political focus. And then we have, my own book, Unconventional, which was the book that I always wanted to write, that, again, just goes into my experience coming out of the military, entering the intelligence field inside, the oil and gas industry, and, the many adventures and misadventures, that I had doing that. But, it speaks bigger to the human price of, what goes into everybody's gas tanks every time you fill out. There's a real human price to that, and, I talk about that in Unconventional. And then finally, the free book that we released, through Blackgrove Global Risk, which is blackgroveglobalrisk.com, which is called Phenomenomics, which was my attempt to take all of this, undercurrent of legislative and economic movement around the UAP issue and put it into a, roadmap in a digestible form for C-suite leaders, board members, financial analysts, and the like.
Wow. Wow. So what do you do in your spare time, Gene?
Yeah. I talk to you,
There you go. Absolutely. As a frequent guest on the Paul Ponders radio show, presented by Northeastern Fence and Supply Corporation of Saugus, where they have fences for their kids, dogs, and ugly neighbors, right?
That's it.
Absolutely. Well, Gene Sticco, United States Air Force, retired United States Air Force Staff Sergeant. Um, you're just an incredible Renaissance man. I just can't thank you enough for being a dear friend and for really just being there. And we've come a long way from when we started with this podcast, when on the radio show and all, where so many people are saying, I'm not a Trekkie. I'm not going to pay attention to that. This is real. And it is real. And I just see you just going further and further with this. And also, if you just want to give one final plug for everything you're doing, it would be great, my friend.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So again, best place to go, engineeringinfinitybook.com. Just as Paul, as you just said, this isn't about Star Trek. This isn't about science fiction. This is real stuff happening now in the government. And it is important. It will, if not change your future, it will certainly change your children and grandchildren's futures.
Absolutely. And Gene Sticco, with that, I just want to say this is an early adopter movement for local governments, community, and business leaders. And this is what we should be doing now. #Indeed. I trust that you have enjoyed Paul Ponders. Again, my name is Paul Solano of PS&All Marketing Group, and I may be reached via email at paul@paulponders.com to do some more pondering. Many thanks to my longtime collaborative friend and associate, Chalonzo Amos of Pod Pro Entertainment, in bringing you our fun, exciting, and informative podcasts. You rock, Techie Chalonzo. With PS&All Marketing Group, I created a side gig to connect you and get things done. Please do not hesitate to reach out to me at paul@paulponders.com with any questions. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Paul Ponders. Follow us on Twitter at Paul Ponders Pod. Follow us on Instagram at Paul Ponders Podcast. Thank you again for listening to Paul Ponders, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, our website, paulponders.com, or wherever you stream your podcasts. Subscribe, stream, rate, and review our shows. Your ratings and reviews help our show reach new audiences. Produced by Pod Pro Entertainment, Paul Ponders lives within a network of podcasts located at podproentertainment.com. #the new radio. Until we meet again, my friend, stay well. #Indeed.